Ask questions before you fight. You against spirits and God against man. Check out this intro and we'll be right back. When God gives you that peace, you will rest in his security, his protection, his comfort, his love. What's up, guys? I did a video previously, was ask questions before you fight. And that was dealing specifically with people against another person or a person against another person. But this one I'm going to talk about is ask questions before you fight against a spirit, and ask questions before you fight if it's possibly the will of God. And we must know the difference between asking questions before we fight a spirit, ask a question before we fight against God's will. And we're going to get right into it. We're going to be starting with you against spirits, and we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 8, verse 30 to 34. Let's get right into it. We must know that when we ask, seek, and knock, those principles, will you be able to identify what's really happening to us, what's happening in the situation that we are faced with? And we must be able to ask the questions to be able to identify and to launch an attack against whatever that is attacking us, or that whatever we're looking at in our lives. But more importantly, we're going to answer the question of, is it you, the person who has committed something, a sin that caused this situation to take place? If it's the will of God, or if it's a demonic spirit or the devil. But everything is not the devil. Everything is not God's will. And everything is not you committing sin. And we're going to break this down, and we're going to look at Luke chapter 8, verse 30 to 34. Let's get right into it. And it reads, Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" The evil spirit said, "Legion," he replied, for he was filled with many demons. The demons kept begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby, and the demons begged him to let them enter the pig. So Jesus gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pig, and the entire herd plunged down the steep hillside into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw it, they fled the nearby town and the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. So as we look at this text, and we go back up to verse 30, we see that Jesus asked the question. He asked the question to identify the evil spirit. He asked and he sought what demons are operating. As we all know, Jesus knew what demons it was, but we also know that Jesus was making a record for us to understand what to do in this situation. And it was to ask and seek after the evil spirit or the devil that's operating in this situation. So he asked and he showed us. And the devil or the demonic spirit answered back and identified themselves by saying legions of demons that was attacking this man. We see that because he asked the question and they said legions, and that legions meant many demons. And so what do we see? We see that when they identified themselves, they started begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. But when Jesus realized and identified who those demons were, look what he did. He gave them permission. He attacked them, and he issued an action. He gave them permission to leave. He casted them out, and they came out of him. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs. So we see that. So when Jesus was able to identify, when Jesus was able to ask and then to seek them out, and then he fought against those evil spirits and casting them out. He was able to identify those evil spirits by asking a question and attacking them. We must understand and we must know the difference and be able to to be able to identify those areas. We know that evil spirits come against our family, come against our life, and some evil spirits are generational. But when we identify those evil spirits, we use those prayers and those prayer points to attack and to fight. Once we have gathered the information of going into battle, this is spiritual warfare. When Jesus crossed that river, he immediately was able to identify that there was legions of demons within the man by simply asking a question. I keep saying this over and over because it is so important. Most people do not know that the Bible explains to us to ask and seek and then attack, knock on the door and it will be open. This is a very simple principle, and most people, most YouTubers do not explain this to their people, and I am going to explain it to you so that you will be able to use these steps right now to be able to identify the issues that are happening within your life. And we're starting with the spirit. You must ask yourself, what is causing this demonic spirit to attack me? They're attacking my family. They're attacking my life. They're attacking because of my generational curses. And once you're able to identify them, then you can launch your attack by prayer and your prayer points that you've found within the Bible. We also must be able to identify that demonic spirits have different ways of operating, and because they have different ways of operating, they have different ways of attack that we must attack them. We see that in Mark chapter 9, verses 21. Let's go over there right now. In 21, we see, how long has this has been happening? Jesus asked the question, how long has this been happening to the boy's father? This was a kid that was possessed by an evil spirit. And Jesus was asking the father, how long has this been happening? He's asking questions to be able to identify and show us what to do. He replied, since he was a little boy. He also said, the spirit often throws him into the fire or into water, trying to kill him. Have mercy on us and help us if you can. We see that Jesus asked the questions. And we also know that in Matthew chapter 17, we see what Jesus has done. That he also cast out these evil spirits. He cast out evil spirit. He cast out the evil spirit from the boy in this section, but also in Matthew chapter 17, verse 19. Let's go over there. And it reads, afterwards, the disciples asked Jesus privately, why couldn't we cast out that demon? Verse 20, you don't have enough faith, Jesus told them. That's one. I tell you the truth that if you had faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. So he identified that his disciples were unable to cast out the demons because they lacked faith. Jesus also in the Bible explains to us that some demonic spirits are cast out by fasting and praying. So we know that evil spirits operate in different ways, and they must be cast out in different ways, in different formats. So we must be able to ask the question, identify the demon or the devil, and to be able to cast them out by our prayers, our prayer points, and fasting, and whatever other tools that we have within the Bible to be able to guide us to our deliverance. Does that make sense? Always ask about the evil spirit. Seek the knowledge of that evil spirit and attack that evil spirit. So now we move on to God and man. So many times within the Bible, and so many times within our lives, we are faced with that God's will and man's will. And are we fighting against God's will, and trying to prop up our will? And we must be very careful about this. Many believers lack the knowledge with God and man. So they do it in some ways that they try to say it was the devil. They try to blame other people of the things that's taken place in their lives. We see that within the Bible because Eve and the devil, she immediately said, it was that serpent that did that to me. It was that serpent that tricked me. Adam and Adam said, is that woman that you gave me, that she gave it to me and I ate it. We must be very careful about blaming others and not searching ourselves. We must be able to search ourselves and search within ourselves to be able to say, are we the ones that committed a sin to cause this situation to manifest within our lives? If we fail to do these things, it is arrogance. And arrogance keeps you not knowing failing to have knowledge and being able to get the wisdom from God to be able to deal with the situation within your life. Some people fail to realize that it's the sin within their lives that caused this thing to take place and caused this thing to happen. But only if we ask, seek, and knock. We see now we're going into King Saul and David's situation. We'll be reading from 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 17 to 20. Let's go there. And it reads, Saul recognized David's voice and called out, "Is that you, my son David?" And David replied, "Yes, my lord, the king. Why are you chasing me? What have I done? What is my crime? But now let my lord, the king, listen to his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept my offering. But if this is simply a human scheme, then may those involved be cursed by the Lord. For they have driven me from my home, so I can no longer live amongst the Lord's people. And they said, go worship the pagan gods. Must I die on foreign soil, far from the presence of the Lord? Why has the king of Israel come out to search for a single flea? Why does he hunt me down like a partridge on the mountains? Let's break that down. What we will see in this verse, what these verses actually explain to us, is David had a prayer, and his prayer, he prayed for three things. He took up three things: man's sin, which was his own sin, God's will, or the devil fighting against him. David said, if I did something wrong, forgive me, Lord. Here is my offering. He put up an offering to say, here's my offering. This is what I have done. He asked the king, who was filled with evil spirits that we know that God had put upon him. David said, what have I done? What is my crime? What have I committed to cause this thing to happen? He asked himself, what have I sown that caused this situation to manifest in my life? And then he asked, is it the Lord's will? Have the Lord made you do this, my king? Has the Lord made you do this? And then he asked the attacked devil. He says, as the attacked devil, if it was the devil, he asked the Lord to fight on his behalf and curse the ones that are involved in it. Let's break that down. Let's see it. So we see that Saul recognized David's voice and called out, "Is that you, my son?" And David replied, "Yes, my lord. Why are you chasing me?" Now he's saying, what have I done wrong? What have I done? What is my crime? He's asking the questions. So then in verse 19, he says, if the Lord has stirred you up against me, then let him accept my offering. We see that now he's talking about if it's God's will, and that he has put up an offering, a sacrifice, to say, if this is God's will, let me put my offering up against him. Let him accept my offering. Let him be able to identify, to accept my offering in it all. But then he says, but if this is a simple human scheme, if the devil's involved in this, then may those involved be cursed by the Lord. Be cursed by the Lord. Because only God can bring a curse upon someone. And that means it could be either a demonic spirit or the devil. Those are the things that we must always be able to look at ourselves. We must ask ourselves when we're going through struggle and tough situations, we got to ask ourselves, what have I sown? What have I done? Let me search myself. Let me search this situation to see, what have I done? What have I put into this world to cause the manifestation of such a horrible situation? What is my crime? Crime means sin. What have I done? And when you come up with you haven't done anything, then you move to the next. Could this be the Lord's will? Could this be the Lord teaching me something? Could this be the Lord's taking me to another step? He promised that struggles will happen, but he also promised that you will go through trials and tribulations, and he will be with you. But he also promised that he will teach you, he will train you up in his likeness to his glory. But also we must always look at that, is this the devil? Is this a demonic spirit operating within us? Not everything is a demonic spirit that's operating in our lives. Not everything is God's will. Not everything is a sin or crime that we have committed in the Bible. But we must be willing to ask ourselves, we must be willing to seek it out, and we must be willing to knock on that door so we can open it to attack that situation if it's the demonic spirit or if it's a sin that we have committed. But we must be very vigilant and very understanding that is it God's will. These are very important aspects of being a believer and walking throughout this earth. And when we are faced with the things of this world, we must be willing to be able to know how to search ourselves, to recognize and identify the things that are happening and why they are happening, and praying and asking the Holy Spirit to reveal these things to us so that we will be able to fight and we will be able to put up a defense so that we won't fall, that we won't be led astray. These things are very important and very golden, and we must learn them and understand them. If you understood what I was saying, put in the comments, yes. Let me know that you understand it. Put a thumbs up and let me know if you understand it, if you got it. Subscribe to this channel so I can be able to bring you more good news. I thank you for watching, and I hope you got it, and I know that you got it. This message is powerful to you. If you have watched this video to the end, I know that you are blessed by it. I know that you will be filled and be empowered to go on. God bless you, and God bless your family. Bye.